Each year, Microsoft Research hosts hundreds of influential speakers from around the world, including leading scientists, renowned experts in technology, book authors, and leading academics, and makes videos of these lectures freely available.
Okay, so what I'm going to talk about a little, I'm Tim Burke. I teach in the Department of History at Swarthmore. I have a mainstream field, which is the history of Southern Africa. This is sort of my illicit side field in cultural studies that I developed after getting tenure. So increasingly I've moved off into talking about virtual worlds and working with a lot of the other people that blog for Terra Nova. So what I want to talk about a little bit here, my interests are mostly about the political and economic behaviors, practices, and structures that appear in virtual worlds. And here I'm particularly interested in trying to talk about a paradigm shift that I think is important, to move from understanding what happens politically in virtual worlds in terms of governance to move to sovereignty. Sovereignty is a different kind of concept, but it's very important, I think, for developers to understand sovereignty and understand that they are sovereigns. Governance is about how you make political decisions. Sovereignty, on the other hand, is the source of political authority in a fixed territory, the exclusive source of political authority. There are lots of versions of it. So, for example, I am the state, Louis XIV, the Sun King, but also we the people. Completely different propositions about sovereignty, but still statements about sovereignty. Developers are sovereigns, and the problem is a lot of them don't seem to understand that or recognize what comes along with that. And there are a lot of questions that follow on being a sovereign. Of them, I think in a way the most important is this. What is the public interest of the sovereignty? So that's the key thing that's missing in some sense. The developer is a strange sovereign. Tyrant, host, in a way, owner, certainly, and God, little g God, I think, with the same powers that gods might have. That's a sovereign that's never existed in the real world. But answering the question about what the public interest is, whatever kind of sovereign you are, is crucial. And if you think about what follows, everybody here at Schoolhouse Rock, what follows on We the People, is essentially a definition of what the public interest of the sovereignty declared in that preamble is. We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, etc., sing along. Now, if you leave it to community management, what you get is this. Lots and lots and lots of angry people on forums. You're going to get that anyway, to be honest, with game players. But in particular, you get a particular kind of conversation between developers and players in which players are perennially frustrated by the fact that developers are veiled. Their sovereignty is veiled. They, in a sense, don't admit that they're sovereigns. So that players are posting, tell us what is the interest of this game? What does this game stand for? Where is it going? What are we doing? What is this virtual world? There are lots of ways you could be a sovereign. You can define the basis of sovereignty. You can think about defining what the public interest is. And those can vary. You can have lots of different logics of the public interest. And one of the simple ones with commercial virtual worlds can simply be maximize profit over the long term. That's a fair one. It's completely legit. But it's in a sense important to own up to that and then own up to what constraints that places upon the sovereign. So what you want to do is stop managing, start ruling as a sovereign. And along with that comes, well, you can see who uses PowerPoint and who doesn't here. But constraints on the ruler, explain, justify your decisions. You improve the flow of information. You come out behind that mask. You're now the sovereign and you're responsible for your sovereignty. You imagine who your citizens are. Why are they there? Why do they belong within my territory? You cut out the middlemen, the managers, who can't speak for the developers or incarnate the sovereign in that conversation between players and developers. More importantly, I think once you make this switch, you can achieve something more important by far, and that is enhancing the magic circle of your virtual worlds. When developers choose to be sovereigns, they can begin to become sovereigns within the world. And there's a couple of really great examples out there now. This is a game that's in beta called Roma Victor. And recently, what the developers did is they started crucifying griefers, which I think is a fascinating way for them to make their milieu strong. I mean, people were like, oh my gosh, you're really touching on touchy territory. But if you're talking about a Roman simulation that's designed to be historically real, crucifying people fits. To make the developer, in a sense, the sovereign who is in the game as well as out of the game, the emperor crucifying people, makes the magic circle of the game itself far more powerful. Another great example is this game, A Tale in a Desert, where the sovereign is the developer. He incarnates as Pharaoh in the game, players can petition Pharaoh for changes to the basic way that the game's social structures work, and you have votes. It enhances the whole purpose for the developer to be there as a sovereign and to be engaged in conversations about the future of the virtual world in meta terms that are also encoded within the game frame. And again, I like to beat up on Star Wars Galaxies a lot. But this is a good example of where you miss the opportunity when you're not a sovereign, when you don't imagine yourself as such, is here you've got house maintenance in Star Wars Galaxies, back before they did their recent changes. And you have to pay maintenance, so you've got faucets and drains to the economy. But where does the money, in a sense, go? Who's setting it? When changes are made, why are they made? If you imagine that the developers in this case had incarnated in the world, in a sense, as the Galactic Empire or as the Rebellion, you can think that A, not only would that enhance the magic circle of the game, but that B, in fact, it cloaks and complicates the arbitrariness with which developers have to act anyway to protect their games. It's one thing if the Empire suddenly says, in-game, house maintenance fees are going up, we need to build more Death Stars. It's another thing if house maintenance fees go up and players have to figure that out later. Where did that go? Why did that happen? Who made us do that? So this is a way not only to clarify and improve the way that developers relate to players, but also to enhance the fictions that underlie their games. Thanks.